The next block we're going to be looking at is how do you make a successful campaign on colorectal cancer awareness, and that's to help bring people in to the screening process. I'm delighted to introduce the first person who's going to talk is Professor Mark Lawler, who is from Northern Ireland, from Belfast, and he has specifically apologies, let me just see what I've written you down. You are the Pro Vice Chancellor and Professor of Digital Health at Queen's University in Belfast, which tells me you can cover both that tricky area of everything digital and social media, as well as the understanding on public health. Mark, you're going to tell us about a particular campaign called Time to Act. Don't let COVID-19 stop you from tackling cancer. So what can you tell us about this campaign, and how did you get out there and reach the audience?
Thanks very much, Tamsin. I've just put a link in the chat as well, just for the TimeTrack campaign. So really this story started with a personal story. My uncle died of a COVID-related illness on the 29th of March, 2020. And one of my colleagues, Edward Vadoliak, who's an oncologist in Croatia, while he was reaching out to me to sympathize with me on my loss, said this really frightening statement. He said, people are fearing a COVID-19 diagnosis worse than a cancer diagnosis. That really worried me. At that time, there was no real data out there to say whether that was true or not, but anecdotally, people were starting to say this. This was back in March, April 2020. So initially in the UK, we reached out and actually did a study right across the UK, looking at what was the impact on both cancer diagnosis and cancer treatment. And we found 7 out of 10 individuals with suspicion of cancer weren't getting access to cancer diagnostic services. 4 out of 10 weren't having access to chemotherapy treatment at the appropriate time. That prompted us to present this data to WHO Europe and to the European Cancer Organization. And really that's where that advocacy started, because the European Cancer Organization, first of all, asked us, would we set up a special network on COVID-19 and cancer, which I'm proud to co-chair with my co-chair, Miriam Krul, who's a pharmacist from the Netherlands. And what we did was we developed very quickly bringing together people. And I think this is one of the important things about campaign, is getting everybody together, all the stakeholders, most importantly, patient associations and patient advocates, but also healthcare professionals. So we're a unity of purpose. We developed a 7-point plan. Right at the top of that plan was, how do you deal with the backlog? But the second thing on the plan was, how do you reassure people? How do you make people restore their confidence in cancer services? The second part then of the campaign was, how do we now do this as a European level? And what we felt was we needed intelligence, data intelligence at the European level. So we did a study looking at what was the impact of COVID-19 on, for example, screening. So 100 million screening tests were missed. And obviously a significant proportion of those are colorectal screening. 1 million people may be walking around with a cancer diagnosis that they don't know they have. And also impacts on treatment, but also impacts on healthcare professionals. So for example, 3 out of 10 showing signs of anxiety, 4 out of 10 showing signs of depression. And so that then formulated our message in relation to the TimeTrack campaign, because it allowed us to say, here's the data that's saying what's happening, and we use that to influence our messaging. And the messaging was reaching out to patients to say, and citizens to say, don't be afraid, cancer services are safe. Please go to your GP, please take up your screening appointment, please go to your treatment appointment. But it also reached out to healthcare professionals, but most importantly, it gave that stark message to governments, to policymakers, that really cancer needs to be put back on top of the agenda, and that cancer shouldn't become the forgotten C in the fight against COVID-19. So messaging was really important, and also using information graphics, and cartoons to actually get the message across. Again, if you go onto the website, you can see we have a sort of a Euro traveling, because we've now done not only a launch, so we presented this to the BECA committee, but then we did a launch at European level on the 20th or 11th of May, but we've now done a series of national launches. We've now up to 12 lateral launches. We launched in Ireland on World Cancer Day, again, getting this message across and working with local organizations to amplify that message. So if you like what you see there, the important things is data intelligence, reaching out, getting powerful advocates to work with you, like major organizations, but also working very closely with patient advocate groups. So again, on that key messaging, and also keep the message simple and make use of infographics, etc., and reach out not only at a European level, but also at a national level. They'd be sort of, if you like, the messages that I'd like to share. As I said, you can go and get more detail of that, what I've put in the chat on the TimeTrack campaign.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I'm sure many people will have both questions for you that they can submit in the Q&A, but also will be inspired by some of the material. And as you said right at the beginning, you know, I remember those early months, March 2020, the fear. I mean, COVID-19 was a plague in the sense that we had no treatments, we had no vaccinations, we didn't really know what was happening other than this thing was infectious and highly dangerous. And I think it's taken 2 years to be able to rebuild trust and rebuild engagement and make people feel safer to be able to participate in health activities. So it's great to hear that you generated the data. And I was, you know, horrified to hear 100 million missed screenings across Europe for cancer. That's a big number. This is, I think, the point to make, that this isn't a small issue we're talking about. It is a major one that really needs to be addressed. And great to hear that the cancer organizations responded immediately, put together the networks, gathered the data, and put it in front of the Beating Cancer plan for the European Commission to say this is a policy issue to address. So thank you very much. We're now going to bring in some experience from Belgium, and Luc Colemont, who is the Managing Director of Stop Darmkanker in Belgium. Could you please tell us what you've been doing at national level within Belgium and how you managed to raise awareness on colorectal cancer?
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all of you to be here. And before answering the situation in Belgium, I would tell you and ask a question. What's the definition of a successful campaign? And I think the answer is quite clear. A successful campaign is a campaign that stops colon cancer. But it's quite difficult. We have a strong and difficult opponent. He's not visible. He's well-defined. He's a silent killer. And even he might be sitting in the room. But if you fight against strong opponents, it's all about tactics. And I really don't believe that one colorectal cancer awareness month is not enough. It's a daily fight. And I once said the best campaign is the one that is done, not the one that is discussed for many years and in the end is not done. We have to campaign every day. And what about Belgium? You know, Belgium is quite a complicated country. We have Flanders, we have Wallonia, we have Brussels. In Flanders, we have a screening program with a participation rate of 50%. In Wallonia, we even don't reach 20%. So there's a lot to win. We have to increase these numbers. And our 2021 campaign has the hashtag "The clock ticks." The clock ticks. We are a small NGO. We have a small team. We have a small budget, but we have one big message. 3 simple words. Do the test. And that's an important message. And for this campaign, we would like to change a little bit of baseline, and we used 6 words. The best treatment is early detection. That's the message of a new campaign. I really believe that screening and prevention are very important, and diagnosis and treatment, we have a lot of possibilities to do this. But information, like Vincent already said, information and education are the first steps in the war against colon cancer. And with this campaign, we go close to the people. We go down in the street. We go to shopping malls. We go to our main shopping street here in Antwerp, and we are on social media every day. And I won't go in details with all the campaigns that we are running this month. We have a giant poo. We have our graphic novel, John, now available in 12 languages, also already in Arabic and Chinese. We have our giant colon. We have bakeries who are making these very tasty little poos. We have pharmacists who are running blue pharmacy campaigns. We have even a hotel who is campaigning with little Bob ducks. And we have our keynotes. I'm giving a lot of keynotes, and every Wednesday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I have a weekly Facebook Live. Stop Darmkanker is not a working group. We are an action group. We are not a patient organization. We are a prevention organization. And we are every day we're on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Twitter and on Instagram. It's for free. And I think social media is a great opportunity to share knowledge and to give information and to educate the people. And what is the biggest risk of social media in healthcare? The biggest risk is not using it at all. I would really strongly advise to everyone to use all these channels. And the three most important things on social media are content, content, and content. There is no place for fake news if you're speaking about colon cancer. The clock ticks. There's no time to lose. It's time for me not to retire, but it's time for TikTok. From March 1st, I will be on TikTok also spreading the message, do the test. And we've been speaking of the last 2 years only about stop Corona, stop Corona, stop Corona. I think we absolutely have to speak more about stop colon cancer. And during the first wave of COVID, we were also doing a campaign. We were asked by the government to do a campaign, and we told them, don't be afraid of the hospital. It's the safest place on earth. It can be a little bit strange, but don't be afraid of the hospital. It's the safest place on earth. And I also asked that we urgently have, we need a colorectal cancer dashboard. About Corona, we have every day all the data. And we should also have the data about colorectal cancer. And I don't need the data every day, every week, every month, but every 3-4 months, I would like to see the data of colorectal cancer. We know the numbers of colorectal cancer, but I would like to ask you, do we realize the numbers of colorectal cancer? We were saying that 500,000 new cases a year. Do you remember, do you know, do we really realize that every minute there is one new colorectal cancer? And during this meeting, 30 people will die of colorectal cancer. I think this is unacceptable. This is really unacceptable. The clock ticks. We have enough white papers. We had enough roundtable. The clock ticks. There's no time to lose. It's time for action now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luc. I can tell that you're someone who is a great communicator. And I'm sure your Facebook Lives, work very well. You're probably able to really engage with the public and get the message through, because you made it very clear. You repeated your message. That's one of the key things, and you kept it simple. And I think that's so key to do it. And again, making the point to people that they shouldn't be afraid, that hospitals are places of care rather than of risk. I'm also, you picked up an issue that I think we might speak on our next panel when we're talking about the national and European policymakers, because as you're right, we all have become so used to these incredible tables of data, live data on COVID, the number of vaccinations, the number of screenings, the number of tests, the population curve, the modeling. We've suddenly become aware how much more we could do things if we've got the correct data, and if that data is being used in everyone's mind every day. And I moderated an event for the French presidency in January, and there's a huge, big electronic bulletin board outside the French Ministry of Health, and it's showing in real time the number of vaccinations that are being given. Every minute you're seeing it change, and you can't get away from it there, because it's very clear. And if we could have something similar around screening and show number of cancers missed, number of cancers found, and as you said, every minute there's a new diagnosis happening. I think the power of data, I think, is really key, and thank you for sharing that with us. Let me bring in our final member of our panel here, and that's Patricia Kramarova, who is from Slovakia. And there she's involved in a platform, and she's a volunteer there, and she's helping us, again, to get the message out about stop cancer. So Patricia, could you give us some insight now from Slovakia? What activities you've been involved in recently? What was your experience about working with health officials?
Hello to everyone. I'm not sure if you can see me.
We can hear you, but I can't see you.
I'm trying to start my video, but it's not possible. I don't know why. But it had been working from the beginning of the call, so.
It was working, yes, you're right. Go ahead. So let's see if we can fix the camera while you're speaking, but go ahead and tell us the experience from Slovakia.
Okay, that's working. Okay,
now we see you.
Everyone. Yeah, okay. Hello to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you our experiences with screening in Slovakia. For those of you knowing us, you might remember that that was a long journey in our country. And that started in 2007. We started with awareness and kind of making noise about the cancer prevention. And from the time, step by step, we moved to continual knocking on the door of the Ministry of Health, which was the main effort of our president, Jana. She's very well known in the original group of EuropaColon. And she attends a lot of roundtables, a lot of patients conferences, a lot of discussions with the Ministry of Health. And we still have been calling for government and legislative support of screening, because we had even troubles that our GPs haven't been keeping in mind to do the test. But meanwhile, there have been about 10 ministers on the Ministry of Health replaced from 2007. So that was really challenging to get a commitment about something and then see the realization of that promises. And this unstable political situation in our Ministry of Health was one of the main obstacles. There have been still other type of public health urgencies. They need to spend their personal and financial sources. So then we had a chance, thanks to our membership in DICE, we meet with our MEPs in European Parliament, and we get quite a positive and supportive feedback from European level. But things have been still moving very slowly in Slovakia. And then we decide to extend our focus even on the other type of the cancers, and we create a platform No to Cancer, which is our current name we are using. And for the communication to the ministry and to the government, we decide to join with the other patient organizations, which was very great because we gained a stronger impact. And we together organized a conference Oncology in Slovakia, named Reality versus Expectations, where we invite Ministry of Health, and we have 4 representatives of 4 biggest patients organizations in Slovakia, asking them a lot of questions. We had a lot of media there, so that was really transparent for the public, and that was kind of a pressure for the ministry, but that moved things quite well. In 2019, government first time approved first national oncology program in Slovakia, and they had planned for next year that will be year of prevention, starting official organized screening. And same year, 2018, they established institution independent from the government, that's National Oncological Institute, and that will be institution supporting goals of the oncology program, which is the greatest. And in till that time, till 2019, we had only opportunistic screening in Slovakia. From 2014, we saw accelerated attendance of the target population. And in 2019, they ran a pilot project of organized screening on a sample of 20,000 people from 50 to 75, receiving their FOPT test from health insurance companies. And this campaign was supported by a huge media support in purpose of awareness, of course, and implementations campaigns like ECCAM and our national campaigns. One of my favorite ones is that was a video song called With a Cup of Coffee, Let's Stay Healthy. That was prepared by our organization. It was 1-minute song about that was very positive. We would like to make the positive association for cup of coffee, let's chill out, let's stay healthy, let's do the test, which is very quick. It's not painful and it could save your life. So that was nice. And in that 2019, we achieved 45% contribution on the screening. That was the highest contribution we had over the last years. But last 2 years, we have been affected by the outbreak of global pandemic, as all the countries all over the world, so which has ongoing negative effect till now. So, but we could not consider, we can consider that support as a successful.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me ask all three of you, to Mark, Luc, and Patricia, to just give me a 1-minute message, because we're about to transition to the next panel that's going to look at the role of national and EU policymakers. So I'd like to ask you, what's the one message you'd like to say to policymakers about, the campaigning? What are the learnings from a successful campaign? What should policymakers do to support it? Mark, let me start with you.
Yeah, what I would say is follow the science, follow the data. Data is absolutely key to this. If we don't have the correct data, it's very difficult to make decisions. So our policy should be driven by data intelligence. That would be my key message. And the other thing is that should include interviews with patients, patient surveys, etc., which a lot of the times are not used, and they should be. We've done a lot of work in the European Cancer Organization and this with our patient advocates, and that really adds a richness to the data that we're then able to act on and use to help drive policy. So that'll be data intelligence. Data saves lives.
Excellent, thank you. Luc, what would be your key message?
Well, absolutely agree. I think that data are the new gold, and we should more use them. And to the politicians, I would say, don't work too much, but act more. They have to come out their rooms and they have to speak about it. That's quite important. It can happen also to them.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Patricia, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I would like to ask them that please support us with the legislative end, because still we need to keep in mind that we know that that's the evidence that screening had a very positive effect on the colorectal cancer, decreasing mortality and even decreasing cost for a treatment. But it's visible after a few years. So we have to be patient.
Okay, thank you very much. And before I let you go, Patricia, you mentioned there was a pilot project involving 25,000 people who were sent a test at home paid for by the insurance company. Do you already have the results of that 25,000 person pilot project, or is it still ongoing?
Yes, we do have results. We know that about 35% bring that FOBT test result to their GPs. And okay. We had the positivity in 2% of them. Yeah. And we know that from 2%, about 17% undergo colonoscopy. So that's not bad, I think.
Yes, I mean, you can see that just a one-off shot of sending the test to home generated a 35% response who go to their GP, and then you get a certain number that are then referred on for an intervention. So I think it's very interesting to hear that example. And as a result of that, do you think that data is going to be convincing enough to get the policymakers or all of the different insurance companies to adopt that? Is that enough of a proof point?
I think so, but they might think about it, because we still have we saw that even opportunistic screening had accelerated attendance. So I think they will think about it. But another thing we had in Slovakia, which was very important, I think, that was a bonification of the GPs for doing screening tests. Yeah, that was even a good step. I don't know if the other countries have that, but that helped a lot as well.
So incentives to GPs helps. Great. Thank you very much, Patricia, and to Mark and to Luc. Let me now move to our next panel. And I'm again reminding the audience, if you have questions that you'd like to have our experts discuss, please use the Q&A function. I note there's a lot of interest and conversation already happening in the chat, which is great. Experience in the Basque Country, from the Netherlands, and other people sharing lots of messages there about the importance of data and being able to understand what's happening and where.